I'm going to be joined by former Husker offensive lineman and teammate. This is a man who started the majority of games all 4 years he was at Nebraska. 6'5", 320 pounds, first team All-Big 12, three-time All-Big 12 performer, 10-year NFL veteran, and started 113 of 116 games he was in the NFL. Mr. Matt Slauson. How you doing, my friend?
Adam, I'm good. How are you, man?
Dude, life is good. I cannot complain. Now, you're a guy who started games as a true freshman, okay? I'm curious, because we've got some young quarterbacks. We got some young guys who started last year true freshmen. We've got some guys that are looking, hopefully they can make an impact this year as a true freshman. What was it like being asked to start some games as a true freshman for you?
Oh, my gosh. That was a real terrifying time. I mean, you come in as a kind of a unknown recruit, and you're backing up one of the best tackles in the Big 12 in Seppo Aguare. And when he got hurt, I seriously thought like I was going to get cut, so that way the team could bring in somebody that could actually play and help the team. And so the night Seppo got hurt, I get a call from Callahan that he wanted to see me. So he brings me into his office, and I bring my playbook because I'm expecting to get cut. And he says, "Okay, are you ready?" I said, "Yep." And he goes, "You're going to start the rest of the year." I was like, "Wait, what? Are you sure?" He's like, "Yeah, I've been watching you. I think you can do it." Well, to kind of put a feather in your cap, Adam, the entire next week, you and Jay Moore beat the ever-living snot out of me every day. And I don't know if you remember this, but this was kind of a turning point in my career. After one of those practices, Callahan kept you and me after practice, and he just had you line up in a wide nine, and he'd have me do an 8-hole reach just over and over and over, and you would just beat my face in. And I don't know how many rounds we went, but I was exhausted. I had snot coming out of my nose, and I finally got you on one. And Callahan stopped the drill, and he goes, "All right, whatever just happened needs to happen on every single play." I was like, "Oh, easy. I can do that." So, for me, what it took was a catalyst. And Callahan was such an amazing offensive line coach that he knew I had to figure it out for myself. And with enough beatings, I was going to figure it out. And I did. So, again, a lot of my success was because of you and Jay Moore getting to go against the two best defensive ends in the Big 12. Helped me out tremendously.
Here's what I remember. I remember going against you. Oklahoma drill, 1-on-1s, 9-on-7, blitz drill, team drill over the years. I think the last 2, maybe 3 years I was there. I still remember the first time I saw you because you actually came into camp late, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. And I remember someone saying, "There's this new guy here from Air Force." And so I thought you would actually come from the University of Air Force. But I remember watching you, man, that guy's big. And I was like, I don't think he's going to move well. Somebody that big, that young ain't going to move well. And then you did. I was like, holy crap, this dude can play. And then when Seppo went down and you started starting, I was like, I had no worries. Seppo's obviously a good tackle, but I was like, this dude's going to be just fine. So I remember seeing you in the weight room for the first time because you did come in a little bit late. And I don't know, man, you impressed me. You played so well right off the bat that when I found out Seppo was down and you were starting, I was like, we're good to go. He'll make some freshman mistakes, but beyond that, we'll be just fine. So you brought up Callahan. I want to ask, because you played for him, obviously, throughout your college career. He was your head coach. And then you played for him 3 years at the New York Jets. He was your offensive line coach. So I'm curious, because he was actually just hired by his son, Brian Callahan, at the Tennessee Titans. That'd be weird to be hired by your son to work for him. He's going to be his offensive line coach there at the Titans. But I'm curious, what was it like playing for Callahan when he was your head coach, okay, and versus as your offensive line coach in the league?
That's a great question. Bill was very, very different as a position coach in the NFL than he was as a head coach in college. I don't know if it was perfectionist kind of attitude or what it was, but him and I actually became really, really close at the Jets. And I really respected him as a head coach at Nebraska, but my respect level went through the roof when I got with him, in the NFL. He pretty much molded me from an 18-year-old kid on. I say he's kind of like my football father. And that was the truth. I never wanted to disappoint him. In college, it's hard to have that relationship with a head coach, because they're constantly dealing with different things all over the place with the recruiting and the media. When I got to be around him on a much more personal level, day in, day out in the pros, was a tremendous experience for me to be around a guy who I believe is the best offensive line coach the NFL has ever seen.
Now, let's talk about, you're at the Jets. You come to Landover, Maryland to play the team known as the Redskins at the time. And I'm going against the center, and all of a sudden I feel this cheap shot in my back, and I'm on the ground, and I look up, and you're staring at me smiling. So let's talk about this cheap shot block in the back. And what are your thoughts on those things, Matt?
Okay, well, to be fair, as you know, the rules were a lot different back then. Also, as you know, when you're in the heat of a game, sometimes you kind of black out for a minute. You're just out there focusing on your job. We're all out there playing for, lives and children and, families, legacy. So you obviously are a guy that I have a tremendous amount of respect for. So if there was any cheap shot going on, I apologize. It's just one of those things, you see red and you just go.
All right, so I may have fudged some of the facts there. The fact was I was going against the center. You had no one blocking you, and you hit me in the side of the shoulder. But I ended up on the ground because I had no idea it was coming. So, of course, it had to be a cheap shot and a block in the back. It couldn't be a legal block, Matt. You had to know that was coming. There's no way that could happen, right? So I had to fudge some of the facts there just a little bit.
Now, Nick Mangold at the Jets, future Hall of Fame center, he had a way of setting up the nose guards that I never really got to experience again in my career. I got to spend my first 4 years in the NFL playing next to Nick, and then I continued on to play a total of 10. But I never had a center that had a knack of setting up a nose guard. I don't know what it is, but taking the entirety of the nose guard's attention, so that way I could kind of swoop in and give a little rib shot here and there. And unfortunately, you were on the receiving end of one of those. But I've been on the receiving end of you quite a few times.
No, you're all good. I had to bust your chops. It's interesting because the year before you got there, so when you were there, I think they had Nick and they had DeBrickashaw at left tackle. I don't think he'd left yet, DeBrickashaw. The year before you got there, it was Nick, DeBrickashaw, 2 first-round picks, 2 of the best ever. Obviously, you were there the year after, but right before then it was Alan Faneca. Dude, that whole left side.
My rookie year.
Oh, you were there. Okay. That whole left side of the Jets line was just insane. Like, holy crap. That was a joy to go against. Ha. All right, let's chat about a couple other things, my friend. So you had a podcast. I don't know if you're still doing it or not. If you are, give it a shout out. If not, okay. You were doing it with Danny Woodhead. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate you doing that. We haven't done it in quite some time. I don't know if it's officially over or not, but we just decided to take a break. Danny is doing a lot of business things on his end. My wife and I started up, a farming operation with components of like a holiday farm, pumpkin patch, sweet corn, squash gourd, miniature cattle. Between all the other things we have going on with our kids and the businesses, it's kind of taken a backseat.
I got you. It can be challenging to do things like that on a frequent, reoccurring basis. Just finding things to talk about can be challenging. So I completely understand it. One of the questions I've always wanted to ask, and I don't know if I ever have. Now, keep in mind, I am a guy who saw a speech therapist K through 5. All right, Mrs. Mary Shaw. I don't think I've ever eaten more animal crackers in my life than when I saw her. I would say something right, or I'd pronounce something correctly, and she'd give me an animal cracker, and I freaking loved it. Okay, and so I'm a guy who was so scared growing up to talk publicly. I was scared to order a pizza. So the fact that I'm doing this for a living now absolutely flabbergasts me. I mean, you can probably attest to how quiet I was in college. Okay, so I've always wanted to ask you this, and it's actually prompted by something Tom Chattel said, a couple, 3 years ago, I think in an article. I forget where I saw it. He actually said you were one of his heroes because Tom has a bit of a stutter. And every time I see him post a video on YouTube, I have such admiration because it takes it takes guts and balls, if that's something you deal with, to put a microphone and a camera in front of your face and being willing to go. So I have the utmost respect for Tom whenever he does that and stuff he does in general. But for you on your end, like to do an interview like this or to do the podcast, how have you dealt with the stutter and speech and things over the years? I'm just kind of curious because someone who's kind of dealt with it myself at times.
Yeah, it was just sort of a decision I had to make really on in my career when I was in college. When I took over the starting job, for people who don't know, every team has a media department, media relations, and I remember when I took over the starting job, the media person came to me and said, "Hey, there's like a press conference, a bunch of reporters want to talk to you, want to put you on camera. I understand with your speech issues, you may not be comfortable with that." I was like, "No, let's do it. I can't hide from this. I'm going to have to do them eventually. So I just have to go, and I have to show the world who I am, and they're either going to accept it or they're going to not. But either way, I have a job to do, and how I appear in front of cameras and press, it isn't going to change the things that I have to do, and this is kind of part of the job. So I got to embrace it. And when I had that reckoning, it kind of changed my perspective of my stutter. It wasn't something that I hid from anymore. Obviously I wish I didn't have it, but it's part of what makes me me. And now as a father myself, challenges that my kids come across, I'm able to kind of come at it at a different perspective than what they have. And so yeah, I'm in full embrace mode of it now. I've had speech therapists from all over the country contact me throughout my career, and they'd say, "We can help you with your problem." And I'd say, what problem are you talking about? Because I don't believe I have one.
I like it, dude. A lot of times, what other people might perceive as a weakness can actually be a strength. So that's awesome, dude. Kudos to you for that. Last two questions I got for you. All right, a former 3-time all-conference performer, first-team All-Big 12. Obviously, you understand offensive line and offensive tackle play. So I want to ask you two questions. The first one is this. Bryce Benhart, his improvement from the previous couple of years to last season was quite noticeable. He's going to be back next year for the Huskers. So talk to me about what he's been doing better as to why his play improved a year ago. And then also talk to me about guys like Turner Corcoran, who've kind of struggled. And I know Turner got hurt at the end of last year, but he's kind of struggled. He's an uber talented, highly recruited guy. And a guy like Teddy Prohaska, who started at the end of the year. What did you see from our offensive tackles a couple of years ago, last year, due to their recent play?
Well, I will be honest. For the last few years, it's been difficult to watch as an offensive line guy. But I think this coaching staff, what they're doing now, is they're bringing back accountability, the fear of failure, right? For whatever reason, you don't want to disappoint your coach. You don't want to get yelled at in front of your teammates. You don't want to get yelled at publicly on the sideline when cameras are on you and your parents are in the stands or your girlfriend's in the stands, whatever the case may be. I think that that this staff is doing a tremendous job about bringing accountability back. And on that note, last year I finally started to see our tackles punching again. Offensive line play, as you know, is extremely complicated. There's a lot of things that you're thinking about, worrying about. Your steps have to be precise. You have to work in unison with all the other players on the offensive line. That when a young player is doing all that, sometimes they just forget the easiest thing, and that's just to go punch a guy in the chest.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're worrying about your feet and, the angle of your knee and how to open your hips and, the hat placement, and then your responsibilities not only on the line of scrimmage, but then your second level responsibilities and potentially third level. That these young guys just don't punch. And for a lot of years, I've just watched a lot of just go out there, draw a line in the sand and just punch a guy. And I haven't seen a lot of that. Last year I started to see it. So I started to open my eyes a little bit and go, okay, we finally got some improvement coming. And now, don't get me wrong, we still have a long way to go on the offensive line, but at least now the direction is everything's going in the right direction. And, I think, Raiola is a coach that these offensive linemen want to fight for, which is good.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I got one last question for Matt, but just a reminder, you're joining us on the Aloe Fiber VIP line, the Sartor Heyman Jewelers video stream, and sending your questions, comments, thoughts, concerns, or otherwise to 402-464-5685. The People segment's right around the corner. The last question I got for Matt, last year, the offensive line improved from the start of the year to the end of the year, especially run blocking, okay? They seem to still struggle, in my opinion, more when it came to pass blocking. All right, what are your thoughts on the run blocking versus their pass blocking and the improvements in those areas, or lack thereof as well?
Well, I think a lot of pass blocking is all about confidence. And I think as this group continues to grow and learn and I think it's also going to help to have a stable quarterback situation. I don't know if we're going to have that this year with, the Raiola kid coming in. I know, as fans, we all are kind of hoping that he gets the reins immediately, and we're going to have to live with some ups and downs, but to have a 4-year starter quarterback would be a tremendous help for offensive line play, because then that group of offensive line and that young quarterback can grow together and understand each other. Because I had the great benefit of playing in front of Zach Taylor and Joey Gans, and on every single pass protection, I knew where they were going to be. That was something that was taught. The number of step drop it was, where the pocket was supposed to be set up. So anyway, I'm getting pretty technical with all that stuff there. But the point of it is that this offensive line group needs confidence in their protection, and there seems to have been a disconnect between the quarterbacks and the offensive line. That hopefully we aren't going to have to deal with going forward. And on the run blocking side of things, it's just knowing your assignment so well, being 100% sure of your assignment, that you can just turn it loose. Because if you go out there, a player's called, and you're not totally sure, the communication from the center isn't precise and exact, and the communication, from the guards to the tackles aren't exactly precise, then you're going into a play you're not sure, and you aren't able to fully turn it loose. So these guys, as long as they keep studying their butt off so they can turn it loose in the running game, and then them and the quarterback working together to know the having spatial awareness of the pocket, I think this offensive line has the potential of improving very, very quickly.
Dude, I'll tell you what. When it comes to run blocking, I'll speak from a D lineman's perspective. When you were talking about earlier just firing off and hitting somebody in the mouth, dude, that makes all the difference in the world. You brought up Seppo, Richie Incognito, yourself, Alan Faneca, Joe Thomas. I mean, those were some of the guys when it came to run blocking specifically. First of all, you guys are enormous. But second of all, you guys would all fire off. All right, and so that was a big thing. And I agree, you're right. The offensive line was just firing off a lot better last year, plus everything you mentioned. And I love the technical stuff you brought up in pass pro. I don't think that's been talked about enough. And again, I'll speak from a defensive end's perspective. The toughest quarterbacks to rush isn't necessarily the fastest guy. I found Tom Brady and Peyton Manning absolutely nauseating to rush. Those guys can't run to save their lives. They don't have to. But it's when the offensive lineman knows exactly where they're going to be. And for us as defensive linemen, those guys moved around the pocket so well. As long as there was a pocket, they were going to be hard to get to. Guys like Michael Vick, I mean, Mike, he was tough to get because he was just so freaking fast. He's one of one. But outside of guys like that, like, if the offensive line knew where the quarterback was going to be, it made my life tougher as a quarterback or as a pass rusher getting to the quarterback. And if the offensive line wasn't sure, I'd get a big smile on my face because you could almost see it on the O-line's face. Like, they don't know where the quarterback's going to be, which helped me out. And if you think about the fact that we had 3 different starting quarterbacks last year, how can there realistically be any synchronicity between where the quarterback's going to be and what the offensive line can expect? So you make some great points, dude. It's been too long. Let's keep in touch even more often, and thank you for joining me.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you having me, Adam.